good morning all, or good night, depending upon when you happen to click on the video you're about to watch. Welcome back to another strange and eerie story here at graveyarddance.com. While all I can say is, this is a strange one. Being a parent myself, I can tell you undoubtedly and unequivocally that the thought of losing a loved one, in particular a child, is one of the worst nightmares that anyone can ever go through, and yet that is exactly what happened to the family of 19-year-old Tanner Ward. Tanner was a young man from Trenton, Missouri, a town of only about 5,600 people at the time. Fun fact, Trenton was known around the world for producing Vienna sausages from the ConAgra plant, which is now owned by Nestle. Personally, I think I'll pass. Tiny smelly weenies isn't my thing. I'd rather find the nearest burger joint. So, moving on. Overall, it wasn't a bad place to live or raise a family for most people, that is. For the family of Tanner, his young fiance, and their newborn daughter, it would prove to be just the opposite. Tanner went missing on January 7, 2010. At around 5 that afternoon, he gave his mom Sophia a kiss on the cheek and said that he was going to step out to see his friend Jeremiah, someone none of his family knew. Sophia asked her son if he wanted his supper first that was nearly finished cooking, but he said he'd get it when he got back, probably not knowing himself that this would never happen. Tanner's disappearance was met with a massive search and investigation effort, but despite this, no trace of him was ever found for quite some time. The mystery surrounding Tanner's disappearance has left his family and the community baffled, searching for answers. The investigation into Tanner's disappearance began immediately, with local law enforcement agencies and search and rescue teams scouring the area for any sign of him. The search efforts continued for several days, but no trace of Tanner was found. The authorities interviewed numerous people, including Tanner's friends and family, but no one had any information about his whereabouts. As the days turned into weeks, the search for Tanner became a cold case. The authorities were left with few leads and no concrete evidence of what had happened to him. The Ward family, desperate for answers, began their own investigation, hiring private investigators and distributing flyers with Tanner's picture and description. Despite the efforts of the authorities and the Ward family, Tanner's disappearance remained a mystery. The only clue was a strange message found on Tanner's phone, which read, "I'm sorry, I have to go." The message was cryptic and raised more questions than it answered. Who had sent the message, and what did it mean? As the months passed, the Ward family continued to search for answers, but to no avail. That is until the day that Tanner's younger sister, Kelsey, ran into the mysterious Jeremiah out in public one day. You can imagine her shock and surprise when she walked up to discuss her brother's case, and she noticed that the last person to see Tanner alive was also now wearing one of his favorite t-shirts. Upon giving it a closer look, the shirt her brother had loved so much had what appeared to her to have blood drop stains on it. She began to argue with the young man and wasn't getting any answers that she thought were truthful from him. So she did something that no one here at Graveyard Dance would ever recommend you do. She got in her own car and drove directly to his home and walked right in. That's when she saw even more things that didn't make sense. Her brother had a baseball ball hat that he had had for years, and she knew that he wouldn't give it up for anything. It was, after all, his favorite hat, and he wore it almost like a second skin. He would never leave it anywhere, and he definitely wouldn't give it to anyone, yet here it was in Jeremiah's house. Not only that, but there was a huge hole in the wall where it looked like a fight had broken out and someone had been thrown into the wall and the damage had not yet been repaired. She had seen enough, and she went straight to the Trenton Police Department. They took her claim seriously and brought back a search warrant and dogs to do a search. The first place the dogs alerted to was a fire pit behind the home. Bone fragments were found. Was this where Tanner had met his grisly end? Not according to the forensics lab. The test results came back to that being animal bones. The testing for blood on the shirt was equally disappointing. Those tests, because it had probably been washed several times and maybe even with bleach, came back as inconclusive. Tanner's family was devastated. They held out hope that Tanner was still alive, but as time went on, the chances of that seemed increasingly slim. The community of Trenton rallied around the Ward family, supporting them through the difficult times and keeping Tanner's memory alive. The police still held on to their belief that Tanner had ended his own life, which angered the Ward family. They believed Tanner had everything to live for, and by all outward appearances, that was indeed the case. Tyler's early years had been troubled by bad decisions. One of those was when he went to a friend's home and held them up over an unpaid drug debt. Tanner's family believed that this may have had something to do with his disappearance, but the police didn't believe it was so. Tanner had seemed to mature and grow into the man he was supposed to be. He met a beautiful young woman and fell in love. They had a daughter together who seemed to be the apple of his eye. Everyone around him saw how family bliss and the hope for a new future was turning Tanner into a changed and happy man. He was just weeks away from getting to see his father again, who had been deployed for military duty, and he was very excited about that because Tanner adored his father. There just seemed to be no reason why he would ever think about self-harm. Yet 6 months after he went missing, in a cold autumn day as they were walking to school, only a few blocks from where the Tanner family lived, two school kids walking along a sidewalk near a park looked up into the trees and saw something strange. It appeared to be a mummified body. They didn't really think too much of it at first, as it was almost Halloween, yet as they got closer, it appeared to be more and more real. They called the police and they came and examined the body. The police in town didn't want the Tanner family hearing about this secondhand, so they called the family in to see if they could identify it. This wouldn't be easy. Without going into gritty details out of respect for the family and the younger folks who watch my channel, I'll say this as delicately as I can. He wasn't really easy to recognize. His feet were also missing. The fact that he was mummified was all the proof the Tanner family needed that a crime had indeed occurred. After all, if he did climb that tree with the intention of self-harm, the humidity and summer heat would have made the body decaying very fast. There would have been nothing there by fall, yet the police still disagreed. There had been a work crew of people out there working all summer, and one of the men who did not want to be identified told the family that he had worked a mere 10 feet from that tree all summer, and if Tanner had been there, he would have seen it. Police refused to budge on their idea that Tyler ended his own life. It seemed the two sides would never agree on what happened to the young man who had so much ahead to look forward to. In 2015, the authorities received a tip that Tanner's disappearance may have been connected to a local drug ring. The tip led to the arrest of several individuals, but none of them were connected to Tanner's disappearance. The investigation was reopened, but it again yielded no results. As far as we know, there have been no new developments on the Tanner Ward case. If you happen to know anything, I hope you'd consider doing what was right by the Ward family. They deserve some closure. His young daughter deserves to know that her daddy didn't voluntarily walk out of her life while she was still young enough to need her daddy. If you have any information, please call the Missouri State Police or the Trenton Police Department. Personally, I think I'd contact State, as it seems the family has already had a rocky relationship with the Trenton PD. This is a story I had originally done on YouTube over a year ago. After being online for quite some time, I noticed that they had deleted it and said that I was promoting violence and self-harm. I had the video also uploaded at Rumble on my Graveyard Dance channel there as well, and I listened to it over and over again and still dawned to see what they were talking about. Head over to rumble.com and check out the Graveyard Dance channel over there to see the original video that was done. I'd love to know what you think. Did I say anything that promoted violence in it? If so, let me assure you that was never my intention. I've had a small team of people writing various stories for the channel since its inception, and I personally go over each one. I have always tried my best to tell the story as it happened, but to also do it in a way that isn't too graphic for my younger audiences. I usually put a warning on the ones that have disturbing content so people can judge for themselves if they want to watch the content or not. One more thing. We also have a second channel that helps animals all over the country find loving homes. So if you're up for possibly adopting a pet, go to eyesofadog.com. There they have rescues of all types all over the country. There's no credit card needed. There's no jumping through hoops to use the site. It's easy peasy and simple. Just click your state, then city or town, and voila. There is all the rescues and adoption centers in your area listed in alphabetical order, listed by city or town. If you really want to help save a pet, head on over to the site and look for the social media bar. Subscribe to each of them, and when you see Eyes of a Dog content, simply like and share it on your own Facebook, Twitter, email, or other social media you use. Well, that's the close of another video. We hope you found it informative and useful. To the folks who watch our stuff, I can't thank you enough. Y'all are simply amazing. Till next time, thanks for watching.